Good afternoon. This is David Wendell with BushcraftOnFire, and we're bringing you the 5th episode of Almost Naked into the Bush. I found some good hand drill material down in the bush the other day. I've got a piece of horseweed, and I've got a piece of willow that we picked up off the river bottom. It's very, very dry, and it had a split in it, so I could split this end apart to kind of make a fireboard. And what I was just doing was I took out my stone and I began to make a hole in there, and I'm just burning the first of the hole in. So what we're going to do now is to notch this out with our rock, and we're going to see if we can't get fire. Now we're really behind the 8 ball here. I don't know if you can see I'm a little wet. We just had a big thunderstorm come through, and it rained for about 15-20 minutes pretty heavily. But I found a place under this cedar tree that was kind of dry. Not only is it dry, but it's got a lot of dry wood laying down that I might be able to get up. However, we're behind the 8 ball here, as I said, because the humidity right now is 100%. Everything around me is wet, so I have to be really careful as I prepare everything and as I get this fire. Now before I do, let me show you how I prepared this spindle, and of course the fireboard you've already seen, that's easy. But let me show you how I prepared this spindle to get it ready for use. Okay, what I've done is basically to cut the end of this off, and it's a little rough right now, certainly not ready to go in the fire. I found a really nice piece of flint, and I took and I chipped the edge of that off to make it almost like a saw, and it really saws through wood. I'll show you up on this top end. It really just goes through there now, and I worked a little bit on that to get it out nice so that it would work well. You can see in just a few seconds I went right through that, which is going to help us with our notch. I just took and napped the edge of this a little bit to make it nice and sharp, and it's a good saw. It would also make a decent knife. I chipped a piece off back here, which gave me a sharp edge that I could then take and scrape down this hand drill like this. One of the things you want to do after our last episode where we failed out in the bush, I had worked a little bit with this hand drill, and I tore my hands up, and I wasn't able to shoot for about 3 days until the blisters healed. I had some big blisters filled with blood, just took the blood out, and they've hardened up. So hopefully I'm going to be able to turn that drill and get a fire today. We're going to find out in just a few minutes. The next thing that I did to prepare this drill is, in Missouri we have a lot of cedar, as you can see here, and where there's cedar there's sandstone and limestone. Well, I just got a big piece of this sandstone, and I began to abrade the tip on this drill just to take some wood off of there, and you can see it makes real short work of it. It does it very quickly, and I can abrade that into a nice point. Now that's usable on the hearth board. So now what I can do is I can get that hearth board burned in, and we'll break this stick off here. I like my drills about 2 foot long. I'll just throw that piece out in the woods. Now I can go and I can begin to burn my hearth in. And I'm going to do it here on the sandstone again for a minute to show you something. As I do this, it's actually preparing the drill for me. So now I've got my drill ready. On top of that, it's got a little bit of sand on here, which isn't going to hurt when we try and burn that board in. So let's get back to burning the board in. Let's notch it and see if we can't get a fire. What I'm doing now is I'm just sawing my notch in here, and we're pretty close to there. I've got a little smaller spall that I'm going to get here, and we'll take and just see if we can clean that out a bit more. This spall's leaving it as wide as I like. That's a nice notch, and it's done real well, but I want to get just a little bit deeper to make sure that my dust comes out of there. So let me try just a few more strokes with this, and if I have to, I'll go with that smaller flake blank and see what we can do. Alright, I think we've got it now. I used this smaller blank. That got me in a little bit finer, And I think we've got a good notch that we're going to be able to pull that coal out of there, assuming that we can get a coal. So let's go over, let's put the drill on it, see what happens. Well, I have found a mullein leaf that wasn't too awful wet. So I'm going to lay that mullein leaf down here on the ground to try and keep some moisture. And then I'm going to take some, not all. Remember, we gathered this cedar bark up at the other creek. And I'm going to go ahead and prepare this right here on this leaf. Because this is dry, it's been in my pocket, it's gonna help me out a bit here. And I'm going to take just a little bit of that harder bark and stick down on this leaf to give me some kind of a base. Now what I've done is I have raised myself up a little bit. I'm sitting on that piece of rock, and hopefully that'll get me up high enough I can get some good pressure. And I'm just warming up the drill right now. You know, when you do this, you can't just go in and start going. So I'm floating my hands and warming the drill up until we get a little bit of smoke. As I said, it's real damp out here today, and we want to make sure that we get this. So I've got a little bit of smoke. Let me start going down here. See if we're going to push any coal out of there. We're at 3 strokes. 4. Let me go a little bit faster.